Loomis is ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? Like this whole time? Like, I just was always like, if you watch all of the Halloween movies, like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like
Just
I get
go to Florida already.
like Michael
Yeah.
Myers is crazy. We can all agree to that. But
Yeah,
ain't
yeah.
nobody gonna say nothing about Loomis, like, because this dude is a little bit like dude is super suspect. Like, what is up with?
The cops are just like, oh, not this guy again.
Hello, this is Survivor's Ed, How to Not Die First in a Horror Movie. I'm Chris.
I'm Tawny.
I'm Miles.
And we are two blacks and a Mexican here to talk about the scary movies that scare us all the time. This time we're talking about a movie that is kind of fits into the, what do we call this? Like
Meta?
the meta, yeah, thank you. The meta commentary kind of genre of horror where there's a little bit of self-awareness. There's a little bit of nods, tributes, looks at horror movies that came before it. In this case, slasher movies. This one is Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. This movie came out in 2006, directed by Scott Glosserman, and starring Nathan Baesel, who is with us today to talk about the film. Nathan, do you want to just introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about your connection to this movie?
Yeah, my name is Nathan Baesel, and I play Leslie Vernon in the movie. And my connection to it is I'm Leslie Vernon. I auditioned for the part, and they gave it to me, and so I did it. And the movies had some legs in the cult, files of most horror sections, and people continue to find it and enjoy it.
So this movie, basically, to give a little bit of breakdown, if you haven't seen the movie, please do. But to give a little bit of breakdown, it's essentially a mixture of mockumentary, I would say, and a horror movie. And so tonally, there's a lot of black comedy and also a lot of really good horror in it. The story is about Leslie Vernon, who is a character who is essentially looks up to people like Freddy, Michael Myers, Jason as kind of legends. It takes place in a universe where it seems like they really actually existed, and he wants to be the next one. And so we have a camera crew that's following him around and talking to him about his big plan to sort of execute this horror movie, essentially, and get a bunch of teens together and do what slashers do. And we get to see it sort of in a dark humor perspective, but actually in a really effective horror movie as well. So that's kind of I think the premise. Is there anything I'm missing there in terms of that we want the audience to be aware of going into this?
I think just like that, the mockumentary serves to like deconstruct that genre in this really affectionate and funny and loving way. So that's really like I think in every review that I read and analysis of it that I've read, it's like anybody who loves horror is going to enjoy this. Due in large part to a certain performance that I could name.
I've read some commentaries. There are some people that have a really strong opinion about how much they do not like me.
Well, really?
I know, surprising, but there are those people, and and I've encountered a couple of them. One reviewer, he said what he printed in print, like a respectable newspaper. He said just horrible things about me. It would crush my ego if I had any to spare.
Well, I think we had a long text exchange about how I think your performance we felt like was what really makes the movie. It's kind of it's the glue of the movie in a way, because it doesn't work if you don't have that turn late in the movie. And essentially, it going from something that, you know, I think Miles, what you said, you went from like laughing at everything that was going on with this guy to genuinely being like
creeped out. Yeah, I was like, because like the way they stage everything too is like, it's perfect. Cause like up until that point, like I'm dying laughing like the whole time, just cause like the execution of like the humor is like perfect. Like I was like, which is funny to me that somebody would have like something negative to say about that performance. I don't know. Like I just felt like you were playing it like how
I get it.
I don't know. Like how else would you play it? Yeah.
When I see people doing what reminds me of me, sometimes I just get so repulsed. Like I act, it makes me go boom, you know. So I mean, that's what it is. That's what they're seeing in me, is they're just seeing that which they rejected within themselves. I know. Who thought we were going to get that deep that quick?
Immediately.
And so many things like especially like I just like was on like when they're in the library and he's like hopping over the counters and shit. That was just like, but it's like the thing that I said in the text is like funny is that you think about like all these like slasher movies and these like psychopaths. And me and my buddy, we always make fun of Michael Myers because he cheats. Like he's a cheater. Like he'll like, you could knock him down, burn him, shoot him, blow him up, hop in an Uber, go to the airport, hop on the plane, fly to Bangkok, get off of the plane, you know, go to your hotel room, and then when you open the door, guess who's right there? It's like, no, dude, you didn't catch a flight, you weren't in the Uber, like that's cheating.
You did not purchase a ticket, sir.
Yeah, you didn't. No, stop it. So I love that, like they poke so much like fun at the fact that it's like you have to do all this stuff to be in the type of shape to cheat, basically. Because like, dude, how do you show up? Like I just like ran like 30 miles away from you and you're like walking the whole time. So I love that. I don't know, like I was, but then by the end of it I was super creeped out, which I wasn't expecting, because I was the whole time I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is funny, it's meant to be satirical. And then at the end, fun
to play about it, and I think that's what people tend to respond to, is the fact that Leslie Vernon is a guy who doesn't act evil because he doesn't have to, because he's not, you know, he just has utter confidence in himself. He loves what he does. He knows he's good
he's
at
it.
He's
like a geek.
Works ass off to get there, and he's ready. And he's ready for the big time. And this is his shot, you know, and he's excited about it. He's on fire about it, you know. And so, you know, it was really just fun to play that to the hilt. And then, you know, obviously there's a dark angle a turn that it takes, and, you know, that's fun too. So, you know, being able to match that up was an interesting vehicle to be able to do that in, because it was just kind of tailor made to make those extremes as great as possible.
I think my favorite part of like the thing I noticed was like, it was like at the point when Scott Wilson is cutting the carrots, I think, and he's like, you know, he's like going ballistic on the carrots while he's talking, and you're behind the main character. I can't remember her name, but you're behind
Angela?
Taylor. Yes, you're sitting behind her, and you're like so entertained, you know, like, and it's such a, like, usually you don't notice who's in the background, right? But it's like I was more drawn to the fact that like Leslie is just so like in awe of this man, and like he's just like got this look like, oh, you like, and
well, like
just I don't know, it just works.
Yeah, no, those scenes are so great because it's like, because they're so warm, like they're such like an endearing,
it's weirdly wholesome,
and they're fucking killers. And like, and it's just so much fun. Like I love those scenes because of that relationship, and because like of how weirdly humanizing it is. And it's almost like you get that real vibe, and it pays off later when you find out that Taylor has been the survivor girl the whole time. Like you get the feeling of like Leslie bringing his new girlfriend, you know, like to meet his family. And it's like, it's just they're sweet scenes. Like they're very sweet and like and warm, and like the when you go and pull them out of the tank, you've been down here for 3 days. Like you didn't say it was 3 days. Like I'm always just so tickled by that like whole thing.
I think something that Scott and David Stevie, the screenwriter, I think something that surprised them both was how well suited the script was for exploring the love aspects of those relationships. You know, I mean, there's certainly a love between Leslie and Eugene, and an adoration, you know, and a respect. And with Jamie and Leslie, he idolizes their relationship and what they have, and you know he wants that, and Taylor, the relationship that they're able to build. You know, by the end of the movie, it feels to me, you know, that's just kind of how it's worked on me over the years, and my relationship with the movie is it just feels more and more like a love story to me. Um, like a horror love story, you know.
That's beautiful. No, the scene where you're like, where Leslie's crying to Taylor, you know, and it plays for a laugh, but it's like it's very real, you know, like this is like the apex, you know, of everything he's worked for, and he's like sharing this beautiful moment.
Yeah.
With this.
I actually like found myself being.
Yeah.
I actually like found myself like actually not laughing at that. I was like, because it felt like genuine, like he was like, yo, like this is like what he's been working for this whole time, and it means something to him. And there's something that's not funny about that to me. Like it actually is like, even though it's like horrific, like what he's about to do, like he's about to go kill a bunch of people, but there was like something beautiful about like the fact that he's like, he really was like happy like to get to this point.
It's relatable, like in a weird way.
Yeah. Not the killing part,
I
but
think
you know,
that was a really interesting example of when you read the script, it plays different. It plays, you know, like you were saying, Tawny, it plays kind of comic-y. This is my Christmas, you know. That's kind of how it reads. It's like, oh boy, here we go. And, and it just felt to me like it was an opportunity to have it be a little more meaningful than that. And I was really fortunate that Scott was always indulging my impulses to try things, and we tried that on a take. Maybe we did a couple takes of it, and that's what they ended up going with in the final cut. And I was surprised that they went that way, but I was glad that they went that way too, because it brings a kind of, because you need to, I feel like the audience needs to see him being vulnerable, because he spends so much of the movie being so methodical and so in control of every single aspect, and to see him out of control, I think, is necessary.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that question, is how much like in the creative process, like how much you were able to sort of craft the character and how much of it was just in the script. But it sounds like you had a lot of freedom.
Yeah. I think we all had to go on a learning curve from the audition process on, because it felt like what they were thinking of doing with the role was going with probably, and I've told them too, you know, commercially, you probably would have had a much more successful movie if you had gone with like the 6 foot whatever dude, 250 something pounds, who's just a monster, and you know, gone that way. And I think it probably would have been a little more gettable for people than the route we went. But I'm grateful to have had the, you know, ability to have gone in the direction we did, because it ended up being something that was a little trickier to describe to somebody else and market, you know, but it was kind of like a Waiting for Guffman kind of thing, which I just enjoy those kinds of, you know, wacky characterizations, you know, of where you just get licensed to just be, you know, to just be a very extreme version of yourself, you know, but real, you know, and something that's familiar, but just kind of dialed up a little bit, you know. And that was just a really unique opportunity that actors don't get very often. So I was glad to have that.
I mean, it's ironic to me though, because like when I think about like slasher movies like Jason or I mean Friday the 13th or like even Halloween, those like the premise of those seem much more silly to me than this movie. And this movie is like poking fun at, you know, the idea of it and it's supposed to be satirical. Those are like really trying to be like slasher movies where there's some monster guy like going around doing stuff. They're actually sillier to me though, because I actually get this character. Like I understand like his motivation for why he's doing what he's doing. And I mean some of the other people we never know their motivations, but this one actually makes it would make less sense to me if he was just like this 6 foot, you know, tall, like or 6'9", like hulking, like figure that was just like more powerful than everybody and like could disappear and like I think it works better that he is like human because you see those moments like where he's like has that joy of the culmination of all this work that he's doing, but he also has like the moment where you see he's serious about it, where he kind of snaps on what was her? I can't remember her name.
Taylor.
The character.
Yeah,
Taylor.
the
He likes.
scene.
Yeah. Like there's moments in there where he's not playing around at all. Like this is not a joke to them. They're fascinated by him, you know, and his and what he's doing. But this is serious. Like even though he has like a sense of humor and he jokes around like quite a bit, like with them in different places. He's not joking about what he has to do. Like this is something that he is like. No,
Yeah.
this is. Yeah.
So like I was just thinking like I've read like a bunch of stuff the last few days and I keep coming across this like notion that you know, oh he's a serial killer, and I'm like, no, a serial killer is a real life in the real world thing. Leslie Vernon is not a serial killer. He is a slasher in a slasher movie. And that's what this movie is about. This movie is about horror movies. It's not about real life killers necessarily. There is a layer of sort of, you know, maybe media complicity in sort of the glamorization of violence and killers and slashers. But I think like what's great about the Leslie Vernon character is like he geeks out about his art. And when you see him be intense and be emotional that he's about to achieve like the crowning work of his career, like you're really like this movie is about love of horror. Like how much, and as somebody who like loves and respects horror movies, doesn't just go to them to be like, oh, I saw the horror movie, and like sees them for pieces of art. Like I really love that about this. This is somebody digging their heels in and being like, I don't care if you think like what I'm doing is wrong or stupid or like a lesser form of something. Like I take it seriously and it means something to me. And that's kind of like, I guess that's my read of that character. Like when he's saying like how, you know, if you have to pick good against evil, then you have to have evil. And I think there's something to that, right? Like there's something like we are obsessed with fear, and what like Scott Wilson's character says, like we're in the business of fear. It's not about killing, it's the business of fear, and it's an ancient and primeval sort of human thing to be interested in.
It's an honorable thing, not anything that I should have to apologize for.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you said, Tawny, about like I think like thematically for me it's like it's obviously it's like an homage to just like horror films or slasher films, but it's also to me like the theme to me is that idea of being like an artist, a nerdy artist, and the thing that you do you're obsessive about. It means everything to you. And like you said, the outsiders, the people that are not maybe artists, don't really necessarily understand your obsession with why you care so much about, you know, you achieving whatever this is. But it's almost like that. It's like literally like a love letter to like artists. Like this is what it's like to be an artist. It's like everybody else just kind of really doesn't understand maybe.
Well, it resonated with me as an actor playing that character, because where Leslie was at in his career was exactly where I was at in mine. And I felt like I was on, you know, the edge of the diving board, and I was about ready to jump off and jump into, you know, just, you know, nonstop success. And and it was exhilarating. I mean, it was just so, I felt so alive at that time. And that's exactly where he is, you know, and that's
Mm-hmm.
that's the that's the pleasure and the pain of an artist's journey
Mm.
is yeah, having those moments of success, and then having those moments where you're in a building stage trying to get back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I love the character study uh, that it is, you know, and how it feels so earned when it shifts to
Mm-hmm.
the horror movie, and the filming style shifts, and you know, um, it's so funny because like there's so many they're doing something similar like with WandaVision, you know, like and it's funny, I don't know, yeah, I never would have thought going into this movie that I would be comparing it with WandaVision, but I am, because similarly they have a thing that happens where it starts off as one thing, one type of genre sort of thing, and the filming of it is one way, and then sort of the black bars go away and you're suddenly looking at something else. And I really like, I don't know, there's something I appreciate about, there's some, I don't want to just say it's bold, because that's like, people say that all the time about everything, but I do think it's kind of bold to like jar the viewer in that way, and you do
Yeah.
have to earn it. You have to earn it, or it's just gonna be
Oh
like,
yeah,
what?
no, for
Like,
sure, for sure.
you know. And such a cool shift when she just pushes the camera away, and then it's like cuts to black, and then we're in the horror movie.
I
So
think
yeah.
that that's one of the things that I'm most proud of about the movie is that it is a piece that works on a few different levels, and so people can, from various backgrounds, can come in and find a way to view it that is enjoyable. So it kind of covers our bases that way, but also it's and it's easy. It's hard to be in a project where that happens, where the work ends up, the final product ends up standing up to multiple viewings, like actually warranting multiple viewings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it's hard to earn that. It's really hard to earn that, and I feel like Scott did a fantastic job of being able to craft something that ended up, in the final product, it ended up grabbing people, um, and reaching them from, wherever they were coming from, meeting them in the
Mm.
middle.
Before we started recording, we were talking about how Nathan's not really a horror guy, and sort of what
That's
the
literally what I was
experience.
about to say. It just like read my mind.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what that experience is like, with that learning curve of sort of being thrust into this community of like rabid horror nerds, and having to like, what's that been like, or what's that like?
I feel a responsibility to, to make sure that I'm, I'm representing. So yeah, I've definitely been on a curve since this movie. I'd seen some movies before Behind the Mask, but once I was working on the movie, I felt a responsibility to try to start learning, and I, with my boys, I was able to watch a lot of Svengoolie on Saturday nights, and introduce myself and them to classics from a bunch of different genres and a bunch of different decades of horror filmmaking. And so my knowledge has expanded quite a bit, and also more current movies. We just watched, we knocked out seven and no eight and nine. Yeah, 8 and 9, a couple weekends ago. So yeah, I'm getting there.
Wait, 7, 8, and 9.
Halloween,
Oh,
Halloween 8 and
oh
9.
my. You know what I was gonna say? I just realized, it's just upon this rewatch, and I was watching the credits were rolling, and Psycho Killer, by the way, awesome, awesome closing credits.
The song,
But
yeah.
that freaking song is the best. But and it's funny because I realized that it had registered with me a couple of times, but it finally went ding ding ding, and I was like, Kane Hodder, Kane Hodder, Kane Hodder, and I was like, Jason. So Freddy and Jason are both in this movie.
Wait, that was
Kane Hodder has a little when they show the Elm Street house.
yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's doing the darkening,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
trimming the hedges of the Elm Street house. Jason's looking after things because Freddy's busy right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
There's so many little details in here though that you kind of have to watch this like more than one time just because there's so many things happening in the background like too in like different places. And I mean, obviously the cast, like there's a couple of people that are just iconic in terms of like horror films in there, but there's like just little stuff happening, like the girls jump roping in the back, like randomly. Like I was like, what? Okay, yeah, that's like there's little stuff like that in there, like these little Easter eggs. Like if you're a horror fan, like yeah, you're gonna. That's like what that's there for. I did have a question though. Like, what was there any specific like character, like movie that you watched that you specifically used to model what you know, or to give you like sort of inspiration or idea for like how you wanted to play this character? Like what movies like maybe, or does that even work for you that way? It like triggered you like in terms of like coming up with like an idea for the character?
No, a lot of times I'm running away from an idea of a character more than I'm running to an idea of a character, and I tend to really not want other actors kind of like I do plays, and people go and watch the movie to see like how to do their role or something like that. It always baffles me. I don't care. I don't care how they did it before. Great if they made good choices and had fun working on it. Hey, great. But I don't. I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna have my own exploration. I don't care how they did it before.
What was in your head?
Yeah.
Like what was in your head? Because I like watching it. I'm wondering what is he thinking about? As somebody who maybe didn't have like much, hadn't really seen a lot of slasher movies. Maybe like what were you thinking about as you sort of crafted Leslie? I guess maybe what were some of the essential things?
Listening to what I had around me, who was around me. So I had a cameraman, I had a mic guy on a boom, and I had a reporter sometimes mic'd, with a microphone, and that's who I was interacting with for 70% of the movie, and so listening to them, playing with them, interacting with them, that was my job more than anything else. The script did all of the conceptual aspects of it. That was all in the script. I didn't have to do anything. It was already there. They'd already done the work. They'd already done the thought work, and then the translating that into interesting characterizations and moving the plot. That was already done. All I had to do was say those words believably, and play with what was around me, and listen to what was around me and respond to it. So that's
that's perfect. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
And it was a very interactive group. I mean, I can't have any experience of the movie other than having the understanding that I had, the context that I have of making the movie. So unfortunately, I don't know how somebody watching the movie for the first time is gonna experience the Todd and Doug-ness of the movie. Taylor's on camera a lot, so you get to build a relationship with her, but Todd and Doug, for most of the movie, you're just hearing them. But they were there, and they were there because they were an essential part of feeding the stream of what is there to play with and what's there to react to, and the fact that they were there to be playmates, even though they weren't getting a whole lot of camera time, or as much as me and Angela. That's unfortunate, but they sure do.
And that's funny. I was when the movie shifts, that tone shift. Like the most striking thing about that shift is like, oh shit, Todd and Doug, like they're actually there, like they're people. And it's actually
yeah.
funny. Like, I had that reaction like the last time I watched it. I was like, oh shit, that's right. They're in this movie too.
I
Good old
loved
Todd.
Todd for the
Right.
record.
Yeah, yeah.
Like and just throughout the whole movie, even just listening to the sort of banter of those two and them like just being so entertained by by everything you were doing.
Yeah.
How'd you do that, man? Like I just love that stuff. And then and I love that sort of the other thing that makes to me that tone shift at the end work is that it doesn't completely abandon the humor. Like the humor's still there when it goes into full horror movie mode. And I love the scene where they're all arguing and Kelly like is like, you know, revealed not to be a virgin and like she's arguing with the other girl and Todd's just like he's like, oh,
wow.
you know, like that whole like
Wow.
it's just so like genuinely like a hilarious that whole exchange and then her going out the window and it's just like that was still there. But then like, and that's why I love the character of Todd too, is that through him we see your shift as well as Leslie, like in that scene where he's like, it's me, you know, we're in this together, and that stuff like that worked so well because
Yeah.
it's just a good like the construction too, the angle that was shot at, where I always appreciate when it's not like this tight shot but you can still see in a dark scene too, because that's hard to just hard. There's a lot of moving parts to that scene that I thought was so cool to capture, you know.
There is, and it wasn't entirely successful in the sense that we wanted to get the visual of the mudblood, we call it.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
the part of the lore is that on the night of a harvest moon, if you dig into the soil, then blood will come up out of the soil.
Yeah.
You know, like how do you like that? How do you you know visually? And we weren't able to pull it off to pull off the visualness of it. We had to do a VO where Todd's like, "Oh man, what is this stuff?" or something like that. You know, oh man, it's getting hard to run, and it's mud blood or whatever it was. You know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
It works though, like because like if you're paying attention, like you know what that reference is, like when it comes back, like because like when he did that, I knew what he was talking about. Like I wasn't lost. Like I remember him telling that story at the beginning, like so it works. I think like if you like I said, if you're like horror fanatic, and you're paying attention, like you're purposely
you're watching
exactly
it.
like that's what this movie is. You're purposely supposed to be paying attention to everything that they're not explicitly showing you, because there's so much going on, like and then like when the twist happens, it's like, oh man, I'm looking at all this other stuff, like to where when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, well, yeah, sure, of course I wasn't really thinking about her being the main girl because I was paying attention to so many other things. Like I wasn't even thinking about like that was going to happen. I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like that it would go that way, but it caught me off guard because I was like paying attention to everything else but that.
Well, you know, there's a lot of little moments like that where there's like these, like, you know, to borrow a phrase from the movie, like sleights of hand, where like you're shown something and you're sort of register it, but it doesn't really hit you until later. Like, of course, and that's the whole framing, or at least the opening sort of, you know, I guess it's kind of like a cold open, right? Like where they're showing the thing with the door slamming, like Kelly comes out to take the garbage out, and you're like, what am I watching? And it all looks, these are things you've seen before a million times if you've watched slasher movies. And then later on, and it's so smart to then later on be like, give you the context for that and not show it to you again. Like, you don't get to see it again. You get to see them go from we're about to do this thing to like jumping back in the van or whatever, or like, oh, that was so exciting kind of thing. And then there's these other little, like the scene where like where Leslie's describing how everything, the events of the night are going to play out, and you're being shown all these scenes and you don't like, and you get to see them again, but like this weird sort of slightly askew version of him, because Leslie didn't really tell you what his whole plan was when you were listening to it that first time around, and like you're forced to sort of go like, wait a minute, wait, I thought it was supposed to go like that, but it's different. Like I just love that sort of I think that's something that's like built in there for people who watch horror, just like sort of that tendency that we have to go back and watch it again and try to catch what we didn't see the first time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, horror is what makes horror impactful is that it's about building up and sometimes satisfying, but sometimes not satisfying expectations, and manipulating audiences' expectations. And that's that's what this movie is setting up a set of expectations that, if the audience has been paying attention in the later scenes, they'll have a sense of what's supposed to happen, but then they'll be as much an active participant in the movie as the other people who were behind the camera for when it was all being explained, who are now having to figure out, oh, shit's changed. It's changed up.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is a good place to explore some of these other characters, and we're going to shift into a section that we call "You Good, Homie?" where we check in on our characters of color. And in this case, Homie is stoned guy,
Stoned guy,
played by Teo Gomez. I'm like, just for the viewer / listener, stoned guy is one of the few characters we get to see die twice because we see him as Leslie is walking the crew through the scenario. We see him get killed in the car. Which was, I thought, kind of clever, the way that death was staged, for the record. Where he breaks the window and then pulls his head onto the glass. I was like, oh.
That was my favorite.
Man. That's interesting. And then obviously how he actually dies out there in the forbidden shed. He shouldn't have gone in. So Nathan, I'd love your thoughts on those. Yeah, filming those scenes. You said that was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, well, I got to punch my hand through a window.
I've yet to, so.
Not most people, not often, yeah. So that was fun. Yeah, I basically, we were a very low budget affair, so I had one shot to punch my hand through. What they were doing, they had a stunt coordinator there who was supposed to tap the window with a little hammer right when when I'm punching. And so I didn't really know how hard to go the first time, but I realized I needed to go harder because what I ended up doing was hitting my fist into a window and it's stopping. And I realized I just need to punch through this thing because whatever he's doing with the hammer, I can't count on that. I got one shot to get it right. I'm gonna punch through a fucking window right now. So on the second take, I punched through a motherfucking window, and then we got a great close up of Teo's neck rocking in the broken glass. It was great.
I really was entertained by his performance, for the record. It was like the most stoned guy. Yeah. He was barely like.
When he's like, whoa, look at this scarecrow, I'm gonna put this in my room or something. And you could totally, you imagine walking into your stoner friend's room and him having some weird shit like that in there. Like, it's totally accurate.
It's so accurate.
And it's not weird, right? Yeah.
I'm gonna bring a scarecrow home and I'm gonna put it in my
just fucking right
where
there
are no crows, right? To be scared.
It was fascinating too because, like most of these characters or most of these the cannon fodder of this group, you don't really see these people. You see him scoping them out from afar and throughout. And Kelly's really the only one that we see a lot, throughout the documentary sort of portions of the movie. And so we're kind of introduced to these characters really through that last 25 minutes or so, and that to me was what was I like that they kind of very quickly through the performances, through the script, like you get to see like, oh, okay, I know who this guy is. I know who this guy is, because you're setting them up as these different tropes, and intentionally Leslie has picked them because they fit these tropes. And so like, it's just cool. Like on that turn, oh, I see who Stoned Guy is. I see what, I know why he's not going to make it, like,
Right.
and it's just such a good, like, especially if you're a slasher fan, it's just like, you get, it's so earned, you're at that point where you're like, okay, now this is the thing. This is the thing he was so excited about.
Except Callie, who ends up not being was never the survivor girl. But one of the lines that made me crack up, I remember the first time I watched it, was, "It's my fault because I'm sexually active." like,
Right.
Yeah. Like, poor girl. It's not her fault.
Which is like such a good line though, because it's like, I remember when we were like talking about like Halloween on one of our shows, and it's just that idea of like the punishment for like being sexually active is like always like you get
Fucking
killed,
death.
and it's like why like like brutally murdered. Like it's like, I'm just sleeping with this one guy.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's just like,
Who made that rule? Like who?
Right. I think, did Carpenter start that, or does it go before?
No,
him?
it's the business of fear. It's ancient, right? Like, it's cautionary tales. It's
Right,
the human thing.
it's also like men's like interpretation of like women, like she's
Absolutely.
unpure, like so she
Absolutely.
deserves to be
Murder at the
punished.
stake.
Yeah, so yeah.
No, that's good. And I think he and his friend, our stoner guy, they're also that bridge that keeps the movie's tone. Still have the humor in it while still showing the brutality of the moment. And so I guess we would say that due to what happens to him, what was our rule, Tawny, that we learned from this movie?
From Stoner Guy?
Yeah.
Just don't do drugs, kids.
Don't do drugs.
Stay away from the loco weed. I think and sort of moreover, just like be pure, be virginal, be virtuous. Don't do bad stuff your parents wouldn't want you to do. It's that, and it's that, but it's also making fun of that at the same time.
Yeah.
So, but I
This is
kind
like
of
a
I love
parental
that
advisory movie.
I love he gets to die twice. And I know that should be like, oh, he didn't do too well, but I feel like it's kind of special that he gets to die in two completely different ways. So I appreciated that.
You're right. That I never really appreciated that before. Thanks for pointing that out.
Like
It should be noted. He got twice. There's got to be a reason.
2 deaths.
There it
the
is.
real twist is like moms and dads like are behind the scenes of like all these horror movies to like try to get their kids to like stop having sex and doing drugs, like because those are all the people that get killed. Like
For sure. It's like the Future Self episode of South Park, where the parents are like secretly hiring actors to play the future versions of the kids, and they're like all drug addled and stuff. And it's an elaborate ruse. I appreciate the movie itself gives us a rule too, in that they say stay far away from the virgin, or what did she say?
Yeah, she says if you don't know, like, don't hang out with virgins or something. And I loved like Scott Wilson's advice was just like, fucking run and don't look back. Like, I thought that was I loved that.
Because you won't like what you see.
Scott Wilson was so perfect for that in that role. Like, he was so like paternal, and like he's so good at that, and of the paternal, but it's so horrific who he is, but it's just like he's like the kindly kind of grandpa.
Yeah, he still has that.
He's retired.
Yeah, he still has that vibe.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
He's a guy who loved his job and he walked away from it, and now he's enjoying the twilight of his years.
And then, and the other one that in a different sort of way is completely joyous, like just to watch in the role is fucking Robert Englund as like, come to, no, what does he say? Come to me, child. And I just fucking cracked up. Like, it's Freddy Krueger. Come to me, child.
I almost forgot about that.
Yeah, and there's definitely irony in that moment of like, and he's like the safe guy who's all like, the Ahab, right? Like that great, I love the terminology that the movie introduces to the Ahab, the survivor girl, the red herring. I think like Tina from Nightmare on Elm Street is like the textbook red herring, right? Like, I remember watching that movie for the first time and being like, oh my God, like, you think she's the main girl and then she's fucking dead within like half an hour or whatever. But anyway.
I love his character though. He's so ridiculous because it's like, because he's obviously Loomis. Like,
he's Dr. Loomis,
Loomis.
Which Loomis is ridiculous. Like, what are you doing? Like, this whole time. Like, I just was always like, if you watch all of the Halloween movies, like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Like I get
like to Florida already.
Like Michael Myers is crazy. We can all agree to that. But ain't nobody gonna say nothing about Loomis. Like, because this dude is a little bit like dude is super suspect. Like, what is up with
the cops are just like, oh, not this guy.
Just like continues to show up. I love when he shoots him in the library and he's like he like goes back and tells him about it, like, oh no, yeah, I'm fine.
I love that. And he shoots like right in the direction of Kelly. Like when he shoots the first time, you see you see Leslie run away and he's like, and I was like, holy crap. But no, I loved Robert Englund as this Dr. Halloran character. I'm curious to what it was like working with him too. I mean, you got to beat up Robert Englund, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was. Well, they first offered him the role of Eugene. He liked the role of Eugene, but he was more interested in playing the role of the Loomis character, and he thought it was more of a interesting kind of meta quality if he was playing the Donald Pleasance role, and so he just relishes it, the gloves and he's milking the most Donald Pleasance every single moment. It's just delicious. It's just delicious because he knows better than anybody else probably exactly how Donald Pleasance would do it.
Yeah. He's like, "Why are you filming this? You'll see me again." I love that stuff. Yeah. And he's got that. I think it was the right call too, because like Scott Wilson was so great, and then like I'm trying to imagine Robert Englund in that role, and it would have felt a little on the nose. Because when I saw that he was in the movie, when we watched the trailer, and they were talking about him kind of in the movie, they start to talk about him going to see this mentor. I thought for sure Robert Englund was who was going to be in that tank. And it was so nice. I was like, oh, this is his mentor. And I know a little bit of Scott Wilson's work. Obviously, I know him from The Walking Dead, and in that he's like, he's got this paternal kind of role,
man.
Right. And so then it was like, wait, where are we going with this? So it was so cool to see them. Yeah, and those roles were perfectly cast, I think.
And Robert was enjoying himself. That was fun to watch. He just knows everything. He knows so much. I mean, he was just a fountain of knowledge. So when we were shooting those scenes of stabbing him and whatnot and getting hit with a shovel and everything, he knew. He was a pro. He knew exactly.
I've been hit with lots of shovels.
Position our bodies.
And of course, we can't not mention Zelda Rubinstein. Who has a tiny part, but is always her just listening to her little voice
tiny
brings
voice.
Joy.
Yeah.
Her tiny voice brings joy to my heart and takes me back to watching Poltergeist as a little teeny kid when I shouldn't have been.
She scares me even when like she could say anything like, "You want some eggs?" or something. Like I would be terrified. Like she just like. because she always like she just plays it like like her voice and like the way she says everything like makes me terrified. Like it just works. It doesn't matter like what she's saying.
She's proof that you can have a tiny voice and still have gravitas. You know what I mean? Like people always think of gravitas as being like kind of this big presence, and it's like no, she brings it.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I wanted to ask, and I don't know if this is obnoxious, but but like every so often, because I subscribe to a bunch of different like horror like instas, so I'll see like an article that's like sequel, and like this happens like every so often.
Sequel?
So, is there anything in develop? Like I know there was a graphic novel or like a right. There's like a graphic novel version of the what happens directly in the aftermath of the movie.
Yeah, we did a fundraising kind of thing to produce the sequel script, which David Stevie had written, and we weren't able to raise enough, and so we didn't get the money. And what we ended up doing was hiring a comic book artist, Nathan Thomas Milner, to write a comic book version to adapt the script into a comic book. So that's how we got that script to kind of live on, you know, because it's just you start, some stuff gets dated if you know, it just, if you're sitting on a script, we wouldn't be able to make, even if we had the money, we wouldn't be able to make that script today, you know. It wouldn't be up to date. And so it was nice to be able to have that script kind of live and see, you know, to get produced like that, to keep the story going. But yeah, it's just, it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while yet. It's a process.
Yeah.
It's going to be a while yet. It's not up to me. But I'm confident that one of these days we'll get our act together and we'll get a sequel together. And I think it's actually more interesting if, you know, the more time happens between, you know, when the movie was, you know, when it came out and when the sequel is coming out. I just think it makes a much more interesting possibilities to play with, in my opinion. I don't feel like I'm, you know, the clock is ticking or anything.
I was like super thirsty for like what happens next too. Like I'm watching like like that credit scene where he's like waking up. I'm like, oh man, like I want to know like what, because I don't even know like where you go after this. Like it's so well like done, like how like it's them, you know, interviewing him in this sort of like documentary like style. I'm like, well, you couldn't do that exactly again. And I'm like, I want to know like what he did after this. Like I'm so invested, like, because this is like the first time, well, not the first time that I could think of, but you don't often get to spend that much time with, you know, the killer. Like we don't know much about him ever. We just know that, you know, that's the bad guy or whatever. We have so much like about him. Like we know who he is essentially, like by the end of the movie. So like what else? Like what is he, what after that? Like, because we're so invested in like who he is as a person after that. It's like, yeah, I couldn't help but be like, damn, man. I kind of want to like know what he did like after he like got out of there.
Well, you might want to check out the comics because I you know, it felt like for me, like of course comics, you know, comics is such a perfect medium to translate horror into. The sensationalism of it just translates.
You're a comic book guy, right? So, you're a
I'm sorry.
You're a comics guy, and these guys are. I know Chris is. Miles, you are. You guys are all comics guys.
Love me some comics.
My 17-year-old, I gave him my comic book collection years ago, and I was like, you know, this is yours. Now, you know, look after it and take care of it, because if you don't, then you know it's just not going to have value, whatever. So, but he took it seriously, and he's been, you know, committed to his collecting. I moved out of collecting. I'm digital now, but he just likes the tactile, having the books, and so he's on a mission now, which I'm kind of scared of, but also kind of proud of, to collect all of this artist that he likes, Norm Brayfogle. I collected most of his run in the detective series late in the 500s, and he's filling up all the gaps in my collection. So I'm like, all right.
The legacy carries on. That's
It's
nice.
a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome. I had a lot of fun. This movie is amazing. I can't wait to watch it again, actually. Now with all this added context.
I know,
Stuff I didn't even think about.
I'm gonna be like looking at the window punch, like
Right?
Totally watch that again.
like looking like super close.
No, this was good stuff. So if you haven't seen this movie, please do. If you haven't seen this movie, why did you watch this far? I hope you went back and watched it and then
You idiot.
joined us, as otherwise we spoiled the hell out of it for you. But thank you, Nathan, so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun having this conversation. We hope to have you back on, and maybe we can talk about a movie that you weren't in and don't have to answer 1,000 behind the scenes questions about. But
It was nice to meet you all. It was nice to see you, Tawny. Nice to have conversation with everybody, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate
Yeah.
it. That's super dope.
So this was it, Survivor's Ed, How to Not Die First in a Horror Movie. Please, if you enjoyed this, please comment, like, share, whatever you can do to support this show. We're on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, YouTube, pretty much anywhere. We're also on Instagram at 2BXM Podcast. Please join us there. We have some fun discussions about movies on there as well. Until next time, just stay safe.